Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I am Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to review the latest episode of Superman and Lois entitled A Brief Reminiscence in Between Cataclysmic Events. It starts with a flashback of Clark in the Arctic as a kid, a teenager. He accidentally makes the Fortress of Solitude when he gets frustrated with the crystal he's holding, which I guess isn't talking to him. So he tosses it in the snow and it creates the Fortress of Solitude. Speaking of the Fortress of Solitude, unless it's my imagination, it's different than the one that they show on Supergirl, which is weird because, of course, it's the same version of Superman and it's a shared universe. So I don't know. I mean, unless they're just going to put all of this on, well, Crisis changed everything. It's kind of weird. And I think anyway that they've shown the Fortress on Supergirl post-Crisis and looks different. So I don't know what's going on. But anyway, he meets Jor-El, and Jor-El starts telling him some things. And they had this sequence where they show Clark growing up and learning his powers and testing his powers. And there's a voiceover by the actor playing Jor-El. And I thought it was excellent. It was very reminiscent of Superman 78. Now, they've sort of done a little bit of that in Man of Steel where, Clark shows up on the Kryptonian ship and he talks to Jor-El, and there's a little bit of that, but not really. And there wasn't anything like that on Superman and Lois that I remember. So, I mean, not Superman and Lois, Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. So this was just very reminiscent of, speaking of reminiscence, of Superman 78, the 1978 Christopher Reeve film. So I thought that was great because that film was a classic, and to pay homage to that, or to sort of recreate that for modern audiences, I thought was really good. But Clark ends up leaving the Arctic. He goes back home. He sees his mother. She gives him his costume, which is cool because that, of course, ties in with the comic. That's where Clark got his first costume, from his mom. And he goes to see Lana and sees that she is engaged, and he's crestfallen, which was kind of sad, but that's what happened in the comics. And there you go. It's part of Superman's character that he, she's the one that got away. So he goes to Metropolis, and we see a bit of a replay of the scenes from the premiere episode, or more accurately, we see snippets that were in the premiere episode woven into a longer sequence depicting what it was like when he first arrived in Metropolis. So I thought that was very cool because it was just very cool when they first did it. He's in the original suit from the comics, or the suit from 1940 anyway, which is very close to the original Superman suit. And he catches that green car and lands it on the ground, which of course is the iconic cover of the first comic that Superman appeared in. So that was cool to see once again. Then they show him meeting Lois Lane, which I thought was great. Once again, it was very Superman 78. He behaves in a way that's very similar to how Christopher Reeve played the part of Clark Kent in the 78 film. And I thought that Lois behaved a lot like Margot Kidder, also other versions of Lois Lane that we've seen in animation and so forth, but if not elsewhere. But yeah, I thought she evoked Margot Kidder, and I thought that was really cool. They soon enough get us to a scene where Lois is being attacked by some Nazi guy. I haven't quite figured out who that is. And of course, it didn't get past me that they snuck in a sort of SJW, don't be a racist message, but didn't seem too over the head, so I was okay with it. But Superman saves her from a flamethrower weapon, and there's this kind of moment where they catch eyes or lock eyes, and there's just like a moment between them, which was cool. And then of course he saves the citizens from grenades that the bad guy tosses in different directions, and then Lois uses a taser on the Nazi guy and knocks him out. And then she has a brief conversation with Superman. She asks him his name, and he says, "You'll figure something out." And he takes off, and someone says, "Who was that?" And she said, "That was Superman." So I thought that whole thing was very Superman 78 once again. It just felt like that film to me. And then they go to a scene where she's interviewing him on camera in a TV studio. And the conversation they have was also very reminiscent of Superman 78, because there's an interview scene in that film where Lois is interviewing Superman and she's asking him very similar questions. And I just thought it was great. I thought they both did a great job of embodying versions of the character that are very similar to the versions of the characters that I like the most, which is the 78 movie versions, and which a lot of people in my generation like the most. So I thought it was very cool. I thought that the show itself had an interesting way of handling the whole thing about the American way, because in modern times now, Hollywood is afraid of attaching that motto to Superman, which wasn't the case in the 50s when it was on TV and, during the early comic era of Superman. So they didn't completely leave it out like was done in Man of Steel, but they didn't assign it to his motto either. She just kind of says, "Oh, so you say you fight for liberty and justice. How about the American way?" And he says, "Well, now you're trying to pigeonhole me as to where I'm from," because earlier in the interview, he doesn't say where he's from. So they kind of just handled it that way. They worked it in, but they didn't attach it to Superman, which was cool. Something interesting happened right after that, where she walks off the set kind of and is talking to a coworker, and she explains that she doesn't care if Superman is into her, like her coworker is suggesting. She's in love with Clark and that they've been dating. I'm like, really? Because in other versions of the story, they weren't dating when Superman first arrived, if ever, depending on the version that you're talking about. So I thought that was interesting. But again, I have to ask, they've been dating such to, that it's to the point where she's in love with him and she doesn't know that he's Superman? Like, how has she not figured it out? Like, okay, I know you could ask that question just in general. How does Lois Lane work with Clark Kent day in and day out and not know that he's Superman? That's a different thing when you're dating someone. There's no way when she was dating him that he never took off his glass. I mean, you'd think he would be, he doesn't sleep in them, right? So if they ever spent the night together when they were dating, there's no way he left his glasses on. That would just be ridiculous. And I don't know. I suppose he, of course, would be careful about taking them off in other circumstances. But like, how are you dating someone and kissing them even over and over again over a period of time, and their glasses never come off? I'm not buying it. Anyway, he takes her to meet his mother shortly thereafter because he overhears her saying that she's in love with Clark. And so as Clark, he takes her to the farm to meet his mother, and he just comes out to her as Superman right there on the spot, which was very interesting. I didn't think that was going to happen. So it was an interesting moment. It's very different from the comics and most other iterations of Superman to my recollection, but there you go. Now, it turns out that all of this reminiscing was a mind trick on behalf of his brother, who found him in the Arctic and grabbed him up and put him under the influence of a device so that he could take him on a tour of his life with Lois and then sort of pop in and say, "This is what I'm going to take away from you if you don't cooperate with me." And they have a whole discussion about it. And I thought that the sequence was excellently written. I thought it was a film quality scene. I didn't feel like I was watching a Superman small screen outing. I felt like a feature film. The guy who plays the brother is excellent. He just exudes like a General Zod quality. And I'm talking about Terrence Stamp's General Zod from the 78 film, the 1980 film. Just excellent. Fully realized, three-dimensional character with gravitas, which is often lacking on these, not only the CW shows, but on superhero shows in general. So I thought it was great. And I'm just wondering where this level of quality is on the other shows. I like the other shows. I watch the other shows, but you can't deny that the quality is not the same because that's just the case. It's not. So we flash over to a scene back in the real world at the Kent household, and Jordan and Sarah are talking, and she kisses him, which is cool because I think that relationship should go forward. I was happy about that. But then I'm going to call him Morgan Edge. Cal's brother, half brother, shows up and attacks the family. Jordan steps up and tries to sort of fight him, but he gets knocked back. Superman does show up, and he ends up submitting to Morgan and saying, "Don't hurt my family, I'll do whatever you want," even though Lois is urging him not to do it. So my feeling at the time was, this is bad, but he must have something up his sleeve, so let's wait and see what happens. And we're going to have to wait at least one episode for that. But before the episode ends, we see where Morgan takes Superman to his fortress, which I guess is in the desert, and introduces him to the hologram of his father, who asks, "Where's the Eradicator?" And I'm not really sure what the Eradicator is, but it's something that this character has wanted since the Morgan character first set up his desert fortress. So years. So we're going to have to wait and see what that's all about. And then right before the episode ends, we see Lois putting in a call to John Henry, aka Steel, where she says, "You were right. He's going to go along with the Kryptonian. He's joining forces with an evil Kryptonian. It's begun." And so we're going to have to see where that goes. But I thought that was cool because, as I've said before, I want to see this character come back because I think it's a strong character, and I want to see where this goes. We're going to see Superman really go through it, as it were, or go through some stuff, as they say, and it should be very good. So there you have it. That's this episode review. The show's going to be off, I guess, until July, so we're going to have to wait a couple weeks to see more. But when that happens, I'll be back. I'll do another review, of course. Until then, I take my leave, and I say, as always, peace and long life.